Her snark actually calmed my nerves. "You want to exchange places?" I grinned, though with sympathy. She'd been suffering back pain since her epidural, the poor dear. It had been a quick procedure. Dr. Stanley had come in and explained what would happen in his matter-of-fact way, and then he'd shown us a grainy photo of the embryos under a microscope. They'd look like 8-petaled flowers. "These are what we call high-quality embryos. Do you see there's no fragmentation and the cells are all similar in size and shape? We'll be inserting a couple of these perfect little guys into you," he'd said, smiling at both of us. Paris had been staring at the embryo picture as if it was a thing under a microscope, which of course it was when the picture was taken, but we'd both exhaled our anxiety when Dr. Stanley said the embryos were high quality and perfect. "I feel a tug on my heart," I said a little dreamily when he inserted the catheter into me and released the embryos. Up on the wall in front of me, there were screens showing everything that was going on inside my womb. A thin white line or tube entered me, and I'd swear there was a glowing ball at the end of it. The line inched deeper and deeper, and then suddenly the glowing balls were floating inside me. At that moment, I felt completely and utterly connected to the enormity of life, to the collective consciousness of the universe. I was life itself. I told Paris and Neal a story my grandmother had told me 1,000,000 times while growing up. A story about Mahavir, the 24th and last Jina. A Jina was an enlightened soul who, by example and through preaching, guided other souls to liberation. A Jina was to Jainism sort of like what Buddha was to Buddhism, or Christ to Christianity. The reason I'm telling you this is that Mahavir was also an embryo transfer, I said as I stretched out on their living room sofa. I had to take it easy for the day and had been advised not to climb stairs if possible. So going back to Liam's was out of the question, and I'd come back with Paris to her apartment. She was having a quick bite to eat and then would be heading to work. She'd taken the morning off for me, and Neal would keep me company for the rest of the day. In his final human birth before his enlightenment, Mahavir, whose name means the bravest one of all, took the form of an embryo in the womb of a Brahmin woman called Devananda. The king of the gods, Indra, didn't think it fitting for the next Jina to be born in the priestly Brahmin caste, as they weren't the caste of great kings and mighty warriors. So the great embryo was transplanted into the womb of Queen Trisala, who then gave birth to Prince Vadamana Mahavir. "Good to know," said Paris. She didn't roll her eyes, but she complimented me on my imagination and left for work. Ah, what did Paris know about spirituality? I thought, feeling utterly wonderful about life. My grandmother had told me that for Prince Vadamana to become a Mahavir, he'd needed both the wisdom of a priest and the courage and strength of a warrior. Hence, he'd been an embryo conceived in one caste and birthed in another. I'd asked her if such fantastical stories like divine births could really be true. "If the mind can imagine it, the soul can manifest it," she'd been fond of saying. I wondered what it meant for our baby. Would she understand how special she was? Neal wanted to know more about Jainism, so we chatted about it and Sikhism and Catholicism. I asked him about his beliefs, or if he believed in any religious doctrine at all. "Well, I was baptized, and I go to the Gurudwara when needed. As you know, my family celebrates both Christmas and Diwali. It's more about faith, any faith in my family. We weren't raised to put one over the other, or discount any of the hundreds of other faiths in the world." I liked what he'd said. A lot. My family wasn't so open. I'd never had a choice in my faith. It had always been Jainism above every other faith. I used to love listening to my grandmother's stories, the religious ones. They almost seemed like fairy tales. Neal was sprawled on the sofa opposite me and was looking at me encouragingly. "I'm wondering if you, and I hope Paris won't mind because we didn't talk about this before, but I'm wondering if it's okay if I tell the little one's stories in the womb. They say that it helps." I touched my belly, and Neal's eyes dropped to my hand.